Hello and welcome. My name's Ian Seeger, and today on A Chat With, we've got Rachel Gardner-Poole, who's head of the General Aviation Unit at the CAA. Hello, Rachel. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Getting lots done during lockdown?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. For those few people out there who didn't read the interview that I did with you in the magazine not that long ago, but the world's changed significantly since then. A potted history of your background is basically you always wanted to be a pilot. You ended up becoming a frozen ATPL pilot, didn't fly for various reasons. You did a degree in hard sums and maths and things, and then
yes, I did.
Worked on various navigation systems, was it, or something on submarines, or something funny and funky like that?
Yeah, submarines and cruise missiles and military aircraft, hence some of the pictures in the background, yes.
Okay, and then now back at, not back at, now at the CAA. Well, back in the GA departments, you were you project manager, is that what it was at the CAA?
Yeah, so I was the GA program manager back in 2014 to 2015, and then I went off and did a few other things in CAA, like leading a big transformation program, and then have returned to the GA unit.
I presume that all of the GA unit or most of the GA unit are working from home at the moment?
Yep, all of us. All of us are very much remote working.
Yeah, and is that probably for the majority of the CAA, I guess?
It is, yeah. There's a few people who still need to go into the office, but virtually the whole of the CAA has been working remotely.
I'm sure there aren't that many cynical people out there in the aviation world, but if I were to channel the cynical people for a second, they'd probably say, well, the CAA working from home, we can't tell the difference because we could never speak to them anyway. But anyway, let's move on swiftly from that slightly cynical and unfair thing. I think I'd like to start by saying, I've had a few people ask me to say this actually, both in person, virtually, I should say, and on the forum, which is a thank you to the people this year who managed to get the exemptions out for licensing and medical and stuff like that. They were, it clearly wasn't perfect, but that's okay. Got it done, got it out there, and that's helped an awful lot of people. And there are some questions coming up related to that. So on behalf of myself and a bunch of other people out there, thanks for getting that done. The first question was going to be, when can people fly once a month to look after their engines? But clearly that's all happening now. How long did that? Where did that come from? I mean, was there pressure from AOPA? Who did you guys talk to? How long a process was it? Did you have to persuade anybody at DFT or CA or anyone, or?
Yeah, so I mean, it was something, with all these things, and this is the same with the exemption as well, and these are continuously under review. So our policies, our principles are continuously under review because none of us know how long we're going to be in this situation for. And I think it was becoming clear that we were, the lockdown was going to be extended. And so we're recognising that we do need to do something from a safety point of view. And this is why we did put out that guidance around kind of maintenance flights. And one thing I would like to say is that it is really important, as I'm sure everyone knows, that we do continue to mechanise the rules around kind of social distancing and the government restrictions on that. And so therefore really only fly if you actually do need to, if safety requires it, etc. It's worth noting we have had a few complaints from the public who are seeing planes in the sky and kind of questioning it. So it is important that you do just ensure it's not unnecessary flying, but it is what's required.
Okay, thanks. While we're on the subject of exemptions or permissions or whatever you want to call it, are there any others in the pipeline at the moment that you know of? I know there's people are beginning to ask what the situation is going to be if their ARC runs out. In terms of, we could end up, if we're in this lockdown situation for a while, we could easily end up with quite a few aircraft out of annual, if you like.
So now, as I mentioned, all of this stuff is continually kind of under review. the ones that we were quite straightforward are the ones that we've already issued, which relate to things like actual pilot licenses, medicals, etc. Those are easy to do blanket exemptions. When it comes to the aircraft side of things, it's not as straightforward, which is why we haven't actually done that yet. And so far, certainly the discussions we've had with, for example, like Aircraft Association, is that our approach at the moment, where we can't do a blanket exemption, so to speak, is the right one, and that there is already kind of principles in place under the LAA and BMAA frameworks for this, and that if people do need to do a ferry flight, for example, and they can get that permission either through their CAMO or through the CAA directly. But as I mentioned, as time goes on, this is one of the many things we're just considering every week.
Are there any other things you want to you can tell us about that are currently under consideration without getting people's hopes up, perhaps?
No, I mean, the other thing that is definitely going to be, well, we're in the process of working, but will be happening, will be for sailplanes and balloons as well for Part FCL. So we're looking at a 6-month extension of when these have got to be submitted. So it was going to be April 21, it will now be October 21. That's one that we're looking at. Another one we're looking at is Part 66 approvals as well. So these are some of the things that we're just looking at.
Engineering licenses.
Yes.
Last month's column, I tried my best. I basically took the ORS, which I understand has to be written in a certain way because it's a legal document.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it was a method of communication to us about to us as in the pilot population. There you go. So I can gesticulate as well. Us in the pilot population about changes to the special VFR rules and the exemptions that had been pre-SERA, without getting into that kind of thing. And it was basically, this is what's going to be the case in the barter in the Manchester low level route now. And then AIS also produced a briefing sheet, and that eventually goes to form part of the AIP. So that also has to have a slide. But frankly, I mean, I've been flying for many, many years now, and while I'm not the brightest person on the planet, I'm not completely unable to read stuff either. It took me a long, long time to read that, and checking with a few people who know things better than me to try and come up with like a 1-paragraph plain English description of what it actually meant. And frankly, my point is, if that stuff is important, which it is important, there is a duty, I would suggest, on behalf of the regulator to make that communication in plain and simple English. Albeit, I understand that you need the legal stuff. I understand that stuff churn away and needs to be in the background. But surely something like an information notice or an AIC or something could have been written in plain language. Come on, CA, can you not just do some plain English communication? Skyway Code, fantastic. Some really good stuff in Skyway Code. Made some really complicated stuff really easy. Along those lines, can we not have an information notice, an AIC, or just a plain English interpretation? Go, here's all this complicated stuff. It's important. This is what you need to know.
No. So absolutely. And it's something that I know we discussed when we met in January. One thing I'm really personally passionate about is that we communicate clearly. And as you said, what we don't want, I don't want to have to be relying on whether it's other organisations, whether it's people like yourself, to be interpreting information that we put out there. As you said, ORS, or Official Record Series, as we call it, these are actual legal documents, so naturally they will have legal wording in there, and often very regulatory type wording. But it is important that we accompany any of those with some really clear, easy to understand communications. Actually, the recent exemptions that we've launched as a result of COVID-19, we've used that as a bit of a almost case study. So that's a load of exemptions that have been released. Again, some quite hard to understand. And we're looking literally in the next couple of days of putting out some accompanying guidance, which simply says, this is what it means, this is what you need to know, and this is what you need to do. So kind of a simple thing. So we're planning to release that in the next couple of days. Assuming that goes down well, and I'd be keen to get feedback on that. But if it does go down well, the aim would be that we use that kind of approach for all these future kind of exemptions we do, as well as some of them are big enough that we do press releases as well. But absolutely, that is an area that I want to improve on. And it's a broader thing as well. I mean, across the CAA, we've got so many parts of the CAA communicate with GA, and it is about putting in those extras, those checks and balances, whether it's additional people doing peer reviews. I know certainly every time I write something, if it's going externally, I always get someone else to review it. But it's just doing those peer reviews, making sure that someone else reads it as the author intended. And putting that in place across the organisation. Sorry, just to clarify, when I say peer review, I mean peer review not just from within the organisation.
Okay.
An idea, an example of this is with the engineering maintenance guidance that we put out last week, and that we did send to our GA partnership, which is kind of includes representatives from a lot of the GA organisations. And we did get quite a bit of feedback on that, to be honest, which we incorporated. So now very often we do, in fact, nearly all the time we send these things out, if it's guidance coming from us, out to them first.
Good. So we can look forward to a future of plain English.
I hope so. It is a big nut to crack, because as I mentioned, there's across the CAA, there's many different departments and different people who communicate information that goes out to the general aviation community. So it is we're definitely addressing with the exemptions, but there's all sorts of other things. People get emails directly from individuals. You know, that it's a massive thing to actually change, but I'm really keen that we do look at doing that.
Good. Let's move on from that and let's go to some easy questions. 600 kilogram consultation, wasn't that due to report in March sometime, or did I get that wrong?
No, we have had a lot of responses. We had 1,379 total responses, of which 1,254 were in favour. We are now looking at it. It does need approval and agreement with Department for Transport. So I know a meeting took place, I think, just yesterday on that in terms of determining the way forward. Certainly any decision that we do take with that, we do need to factor in that we won't be a full member of EASA in the future, which obviously we didn't know when all of this started. So that's just an aspect that we need to consider. But no, it's definitely progressing. I'm hoping we should be able to release the response to the consultation within the next month, if not sooner than that.
I've decided to not ask too many Brexit EASA questions on the basis that if I do, I would imagine that you would pick up a piece of paper.
So at the minute, I mean, we are still dependent on ongoing Brexit negotiations. I mean, the one thing that the UK has committed to is continue recognising EU approvals for up to 2 years after the end of the transition period this year. But I'm afraid that is about all I can say with regards to Brexit.
So here's a technical question. There are people in the UK who currently have a UK issued LAPL, light aircraft pilot's licence, which is an EASA sub-ICAO license. So currently today, if you have a LAPL, you can jump in your aeroplane in the UK, well, not today, clearly, but if we didn't have all these coronavirus restrictions, you could jump in your aeroplane and fly throughout Europe with that license being recognised without a problem. Do we know yet whether that will definitely be the case come January, assuming that I'm not going to get into a Brexit discussion about whether we do or don't end the transition period or whatever. But let's just assume that we do on December the 31st. Do we yet know if that license will be recognised as it's a UKCA issued sub-ICAO license? Will it be recognised throughout EASA land, or do we not know that yet?
We still don't know it because it's dependent again on the ongoing Brexit negotiations.
So we'll keep on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll be communicating as soon as we do have information. We'll be communicating it, but at the minute, unfortunately, we don't.
There's an interesting question that came about instructor seminars. I don't know if you saw it. What are the chances of looking at this kind of thing and doing it in some kind of controlled Zoom sessions or Skype sessions or whichever? Is this our opportunity to drag aviation as far forward as the 19th century even?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly across the CAA, we are already doing things like webinars and having meetings whether it's via Zoom, via Skype, via Microsoft Edge, so that is definitely stuff that we are using both internally and externally much more. I did check with the department responsible for this, for the instructors, and they said yes, absolutely, in principle. I think they are looking at putting some guidance out on this soon on this. And as you pointed out, you know, our approach with this obviously depends on how long we carry on in this situation.
So obviously there's, you know, most of our lives are currently dominated by the whole coronavirus and the restrictions and what we can do, what we can't do, and getting our normal stuff done in different ways. Apart from all that, what's the GA department doing? What would it be doing normally, and what is it continuing to do normally, and what's still on your horizon for stuff to do?
Yeah, so one of the things, and I mentioned this when we met earlier this year, but one of the things that I'm really keen that both myself and the rest of the department do is kind of get out more. Obviously, that's slightly challenging at the moment, but get out into the GA community more, do more engagement with different parts of the GA community. And we've got a couple of examples where we did do that over the last 2 or 3 months before we entered in a situation where we can't go out. So there are 2 examples that I've got. One is where we did road shows to introduce the new PPL, theoretical knowledge exam system, which is going to be an online system. So no more will be using paper-based, but this was the plan was that we'll be rolling this out over the summer, starting off with a few training schools initially and then rolling across to everyone in the summer. Naturally, the timeline for that has been delayed slightly, but certainly the feedback we had was that people really appreciated the road shows, really appreciated being able to actually kind of engage with us, ask questions directly, get demonstrations of the new system. So we did have really positive feedback on that. Another example was work that we're doing with our maintenance organisations. So recognising there's quite a lot of changes, things like Part M Light, other changes that have been coming in. So again, we did roadshows across the country with maintenance organisations. We had, I think, a total of 106 organisations attend these, and actually feedback, we always try and get feedback on these sessions, but I think 98% who filled in the survey rated it as either excellent or good, the majority saying excellent, and they really appreciated it. And importantly, the last few sessions, obviously by that time we were now in the social distancing scenario. So the last few sessions were actually conducted via Skype, which again was quite successful based on the feedback that we had. So that was something we were hoping to do other road shows this year, but because of the situation we're in now, we are going to need to defer those. But that's still something I'm really keen we do, both subject specific and more kind of general road shows, and making sure we do cover across the country as well.
Hi, if you got to the end of that video and thought it ended a bit abruptly, then you're right. Unfortunately, the reason for that was purely my incompetence, so I apologise for that. I did continue my chat with Rachel. We did manage to say goodbye, and I was completely polite and everything. I just screwed up the technical side of it. A couple of things that I missed. The CAA, or Rachel I should say, Rachel straight CAA, wanted to say that the CAA is working towards a return to flying when appropriate. The other message was that now's a great time to brush up on everyone's theory, all that. Remember all that stuff that we learnt during our air law exams and all that stuff? It was quite a long time ago for me. I'm not entirely sure I can remember all of it at the moment, but I probably will do a bit of a brush up. Not a bad idea. And we can expect some guidance in the next few weeks around the whole return to flying thing, obviously if and when appropriate. Anyway. Apologies for that. I've learnt quite a lot from making this video. Got quite a few things wrong in it, so apologies for that. However, that said, if you did like it, if you'd like to see me and others from the Flyer team trying to get better over time and doing a better job, I'm sure everyone else will do a great job, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell so that you get notified when new stuff's uploaded, and then you can all look and have a laugh at the next bunch of mistakes I'm going to make. Anyway, thanks very much. Bye.